Hello guys, Jeff and MACkite,
And I'm Tucker.
and we're here to discuss a little excitement about Parawing. Parawings are gaining a lot of momentum.
Yeah,
It's an exciting thing that's coming in the market. We've had winging here for a few years, and now we've got the Parawing to just add to the excitement of riding waves, riding the foil with less in the hands.
yeah, and we're back to the naming convention issue, right? Now, is it Parawing? Is it handkite? I've seen all kinds of crazy things, but I think Parawing's probably what's sticking.
We're blurring the lines a little bit, obviously. The kiters are joking that we're trying to look like kiters a little bit again with our lines and our bar. But anyways, we're here. We've had some experience. Tucker's a little ahead of me in the learning curve, and I'm in the trenches, learning about it right now.
That's good, yeah.
Yeah, and so we've had some discussions. We want to help you, our customers and those buying their first Parawing with the gear that they have. We want to kind of give you some guidance and help. What can help the learning curve? What can help me just to have some success? We're not going to go dive deep into where this can take you and where this can be applied, but we're really here. You got your Parawing, you've got some equipment at home because you're winging. And what do I need to be successful? Because it is tough. I'll be honest with you. I've gotten to a level in winging where I can show up at the beach, any conditions, have my fun, get out there and ride, and feel fulfilled.
Yeah, and as a more experienced rider, you can ride almost anything now, as long as it's somewhat appropriate.
Yeah.
So you can adapt to it. But
exactly. And now my experience with Para is humbling, and it's kind of bringing me back to square one again. And I'm reaching for what can give me the most success. What should I choose as my board, my foil? That's kind of where this discussion is going to help with her.
Yeah, we've done all the wrong things for you guys, so we can give you advice on how to do the right stuff, or at least know if you've got, sort of somewhat adequate gear, but it's not quite right. You might take a little longer and struggle through that a little bit. So just know that, rather than getting super frustrated, I got a little longer learning curve ahead of me if I don't want to get something that's better suited. I think you can still get there, but it's good to know that progressing, and it's good to know that looking at what kind of session you're going to be doing, whether you're just moving downwind and trying to learn that way or trying to stick around the same spot. Yep, yeah. That can definitely change how you approach a session. So I've ridden massively overpowered, small wingboards, small foils, and that's kind of how I learned. But it was hard. It was definitely physical, grueling, and in those conditions when you're doing that, it's super hard to ride upwind. It's hard to control that power. You're just at the verge of chaos the entire time. Yes. You don't feel in control. You definitely don't feel comfortable. So going back, what I wish I could have told myself was go with a little bit bigger board, but not overly long. Something like a mid-length around your weight in kilograms, roughly, plus or minus maybe 10 liters, depending on the model and your local conditions and stuff, or maybe just what you already have in your garage. And then for the foil, ride something a little bigger. I would say something, if you're a winger, that you already ride in light wind conditions. That's probably going to be ideal for learning to Parawing. Even if it's windier, even if the waves are a little bigger, just having a bit more foil under your feet really helps with that early lift off, and then lets you size down in your wings so you're not always massively overpowered when you're out there learning. So what's your experience been, Mr. Jeff?
I would say that's the key about the power. The Para is a whole different orientation when you're starting. Like yesterday, I had to paddle out to get away from the beach a little bit. So it
was onshore wind. Yeah,
onshore wind. So I think what I'm learning is I want to make sure that I go out in appropriate wind and have the appropriate Parawing that's, I'm not feeling way overpowered, but that's something I can manage, because it is a different thing to manage. And I think experimenting on the beach is a good spot to start, if you're in doubt, because these Parawings do have a lot of power for their meters. I generally ride a lot of 4 and 5 meter above around here with my typical wing, but I'm finding with the Parawing, these do have a lot of punch, but I think I'm learning to practice a little bit on the beach. But yeah, make sure that you're not in conditions that are just on the high end for your Parawing. You want to make sure you're kind of that sweet spot. It's going to help you.
Yep, yeah. And there's a lot of stuff going around like, oh, just ride the same as your wing. I'm not sure that's true for me because I like to ride my wings powered up, really powered up. I'm rarely in the lower half of the wind range for my wings unless I'm riding in super light wind. So I would say, you know, if you've got a 5 and you can ride that in 15 to 30, you know, let's look at the lower half of the range because that's kind of your likely range of your Parawing. So a 5-meter Parawing, you know, that 15 to 22 range, it's quite comfortable, I find, for most models. 4-meter, you know, you could ride a 4-meter winging from, we'll say, I don't know, what do you say, Jeff? 22, 23, up to 40, depending on the model and how powered you want
your
to
weight
be and all
foil
that.
you're using.
But you know, realistically, a 4-meter wing is really functional from beginner level at, you know, 22 to, we'll say, 28, roughly.
And I think,
so, don't plan to ride overpowered. You
don't.
can do it. You can. I've ridden 5s and 35, but it's absolute chaos, and it's pretty much the tool just to, oop, I'm up now. Quick, pack it away before this thing blows me up. So it's a different riding style. You're primarily only downwind riding in that kind of a situation because you can't drag that super powerful sail up and through the wind.
So number one, I would say with your Parawing, pick a Parawing where you're going to have a controllable power range that you can use with. That's something I've learned. Very important. Don't go overpowered. Where you want to compensate for that, I would say where I made the mistake. My first time I went out, I went on too small of a board, liters wise. It was like a 62 liter board, one that I could easily ride winging, no problem. But I needed a little more buoyancy and a little bit more control learning this new sport. So I definitely agree with going something like you said already, closer to your kilograms in weight. For me, that'd be like something between 75, 85 kilograms, and with length. You know, that midi, I think that's more important, that you get something a little bit longer. So size up with your board. I have tried it on a downwind board. I am finding that I'm having a little more success if I'm on something that has a little bit more width and is a little less tracky. You know, with a downwind board, it's narrow. The thing will get up to speed quickly. But with Para, you know, that can be, I'm trying to control the side-to-side pitch a lot, and it can get a little tracky. But, you know, I think that's a better choice than trying to go with your go-to normal wing board.
Yeah, I would agree. Downwind board isn't ideal unless you're in really light conditions, and then you kind of have to. But know that it's going to be more tracky. The thing to know about Parawings versus wings, if you're already a winger, or if you're a downwind sub kind of person, you're getting into Parawing, is the wing pulls forward. It drives forward. It's not creating a lot of lift. There's a little bit of downwind pull, but really you're balancing that slight downwind pull with the forward drive and trying to create some apparent wind with these sails. More so than like a wing where you can just do a pull up on that thing, because it's got this profile with a lot of lift and you can aim it up and pull up on it.
And it gives
the
you
wing
stability.
Doesn't do that.
No.
You don't have that wing to lean on. It doesn't have that loft and lift that you get from a lot of wings. So it wants to be flown with speed, and the more board speed you can build. So your wind is coming here, and here's perpendicular to the wind. You don't want to go there. Here's straight downwind. You don't want to go there. You want to be about 30 degrees downwind roughly. In finding that magic spot can be a bit of a trial and error. So if you're on a downwind board and you're moving with momentum in this direction, that long, narrow, hard rails, you know, downwind boards are meant to track as straight as they can so you can get as most projection out of your turn or out of your paddle. But it's harder to redirect, especially once it's moving. So a lot of times you're going to find, oh, I got the wrong board angle, and then you're going to get pulled off the board, or you're going to be kind of heading a little too far downwind, and you're not going to have enough power in the sail to build apparent wind. So finding that magic board direction is quite important as compared to winging, or as compared to downwind, where you're kind of just going straight downwind or alongside the wave. That's a really big factor, and that's why you need that length to build that efficiency and build that apparent wind on the water, to hopefully be able to fly a smaller wing and eventually a smaller foil in those conditions. But yeah, there's a sweet spot there. You don't want to go super short 5-foot wingboard. It's never going to build that speed. It's probably going to send you flying off the edge because you can't build the speed and it's kind of just thrown around. Downwind board, you can do it again in light wind, but you know, you're going to struggle more with keeping that board in the right direction and redirecting it like you can do with those mid-length kind of boards. That's the ideal, I think. That's where I've had the most fun, the most success. A lot of times now when I'm out there riding, I'm on, you know, mid-length under 6'6" has been kind of my go-to, somewhere between 20 and 23, 24 inches wide, somewhere in there. Tends to be a really nice stable platform. They're not so big where they're not fun to ride. So if you get in some waves or you want to pump around and rip,
which is down the road,
you can do that. So it doesn't feel like such a compromise,
yeah,
you know, versus like an 8-foot downwind board where that's great. I got it on foil, but like now I need to pump between swell. It's quite big to do that. You know, now I want to rip on a wave because I packed my wing away and this thing's just kind of taking a little longer to swing around. And it's still fun, but ultimately, you'll probably want something a little shorter to level up your performance, to really make a more efficient pump.
And that's down the road.
Yeah, that's down the road.
I mean, I just want to be able to get up and ride the first time and get rolling, which I have not been able to do yet. I've been taxiing a lot, but I'm sharing some of the things I'm learning. I've been overpowered with my Parawing. I've been on too small of a board. And something we have, you know, something you touched on, the 3 components here, the foil. Again, I 100% agree with you to go up to your light wind foil, the larger foil. You know, I tried out the first time around 900. I could not get enough board speed, and the angles that you're talking about. There's so many new things because when you have that Parawing, it's kind of like riding, unhooked, kiting.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of power in trying to figure out where it should be oriented with the board to get that speed to get up and riding. So I can see where having something for myself that would be between 12 and 1300, a square centimeter foil around that mid aspect range.
Yep.
Just something that doesn't require as much speed, because I don't have the skill yet to get everything set, you know, because I was really confident the first time I went out. I'll be straight up. I got up and I had the Parawing up and I'm like, this all feels comfortable. I just need to get the board speed and I'll pop right up.
Right.
There's some skill set in harnessing that.
Finding that sweet spot, sheeting that Parawing, even though, you know, there's not a lot of deep power in there. There's enough where if you're holding it wrong, you're not getting power, or if you're over sheeting it, it's backstalling all the time and not driving forward. So getting that figured out, you can do that on the beach, of course, any day with a little bit of wind. So I'd advise that. But
have space. You know, I think I'm trying to learn too in a little bit where we're protected. It is better, kind of like when you learn to wing, it's best not to go out in the open swell and waves initially. But I think you have to allow yourself this mental thought process that you are going to be heading downwind when you're learning this. And even when you get up and you start riding and you fall when you're making your turns and you bail out the first few times, it's going to take a little more time to get back up. So you're just slowly going to be bearing downwind in this sport. So really it becomes a mindset, you know, don't go out overpowered on the Parawing the first few times. Try to find that sweet spot, size up on your foil, go back to your light wind foil and shoot, you know, your board. You shouldn't be on your gunny powered up board. You want to go on something that's a little bit longer, a downwind board or mid-length board, just to give you that little extra assurance when you're first getting up. You know, you got to celebrate the small wins when you're learning this.
Yeah.
When I finally yesterday, I paddled out, got this thing that was kind of wet in the water and the lines were all over, and I was able to get it up. I was like, win number 1. I got up. And then 2, you know, getting up on the board. You know, I do side saddle, we joke, but I've learned to be efficient getting up on the board from the side. And so I got up on the board and I just got there on my knees and I started just kind of feeling it, taxiing around.
Yeah, level 2.
Yeah,
check.
I was able to actually go upwind a little bit, you know, and I was, you know, learning that. And then I'd turn and go the other way. And then the next step I did is stand up. And I was just riding the board. Yeah. You know, and I'm like, so you start to learn that's as far as I've gotten. I have yet to get enough momentum to get up on foil. So,
you know, once you put in the hours, once you find, you know, the right balance of conditions and gear, you know, you'll be there in no time. And then just like winging, you start to expand what's possible once you get some of those things figured out. I mean, again, I wish I could go back to myself this summer when I was starting to learn this stuff and be like, hey, idiot, like, don't go out totally lit with a 60-liter board and a 900 foil. Like, yeah, I was successful. I could get up on foil and go ride a wave. But then the problem was,
not many people can do that.
There's no way to get back upwind. So you're walking back upwind or committing to a downwinder at that point, and it's just chaos, you know, like you weren't really learning to wing. You're just surf foiling, but managing to get on foil quickly with this massively overpowered wing. It's like you threw a hook on a speedboat and you're like, and you're taking off and you're like, okay, I'm on my feet, I'm gonna drop it. You know, so that's really what happened, you know, is you weren't parawinging. You know, you were for half a second completely out of control, learning nothing other than just, this thing can get me on foil, and then quickly shutting it off as quickly as you could. And that's cool. It's valuable, but you're not progressing your skills that much because you're really not using the parawing that much. So it's fun, it's cool. You see the possibilities of what boards and stuff you can ride and how far you can push the gear if you really want to. But in reality, I think a lot of people are going to want to be on the parawing a bit more, have a bit more reliable, controllable power, and that comes from the proper gear and in the proper situation and all of that, like we've been discussing. And you know, you and I are fairly experienced foilers. We've both been doing this a long time. So if you aren't, you know, a really advanced foiler, or you haven't been doing it so long that all of that stuff is really innate and you can get over some of those issues, it's even more important, you know, to have the proper gear in the right conditions, get out in flat water, no current, no waves if you can. That's going to be your bunny slope, so to speak.
And this is reminding me too, start on the beach. You know, I forget, I've been practicing with the para on the beach a lot. Just changing hands, going.
We've both been that guy, right? Testing out wings, running on the beach, like we're carrying this thing, looking like a goof.
The other thing is, you know, packing it down. You know, I'm learning to grab the front lines when I do that, not both lines, because it can still stay powered up. I've not experienced it on the water yet, but on the land, you know, this is all practices, so you can take that memory, muscle memory, and thought processes, and hopefully bring it to the water. So we're hoping
throwing it back out, packing it up,
finding
that sheeting angle, I think, is really important, especially if you aren't already a sailor or a winger or a kiter. You know, that's going to be really important knowledge and feedback and muscle memory. You want to be able to be real second nature with that angle, and you know, the difference of a couple of degrees on that bar make a big difference in the riding. It can be make or break, really. So the more time you can spend flying it, the better. Yeah,
I think, well, hopefully this will give you some tips to be successful. If you need more assistance in the thought process of what gear you should put together when you're doing the sport, give us a call here, send us an email. Be more than happy to help you out. But we just really wanted to take what we've learned, each of us, in our progression of parawinging, and hope that some of these tips will help you to be successful as you learn and progress. And be kind to yourself. You know, you kind of have to go back to that being a beginner and learning again. And chill out. Be okay with, you know, getting away from where you started. You may have to do the walk again, or just paddle back in.
I chalk it up as like a free gym membership, you know, like anytime you learn something new, you're struggling, you're dead tired, and you're like, at least I got a great workout. Worst case scenario, you're on the water. You know, how can you be upset about that? So,
because it will wear you out. I mean, your nerves are up a little bit, your senses are up a little bit, and everything feels a little different. So
you're tense, and it's just, it's fun.
But it's going to be worth the process, I know. Because the feeling of being able to foil with less in your hands, and you know, the possibilities that are there is why we're all kind of excited about it. So
and I'm just really excited about not having to pump up a wing or a kite or whatever after all these years of doing all that.
You can show up to the beach and boom, ready to go.
Man, you can walk right out the door. You can drive up with your wing out the window and be walking into the water.
Right out there. So anyways, there you have it. the fun of parawing. All the reasons why we're excited about it, and hope you too. So enjoy the stoke.
Enjoy it. If you have any comments or tips to add to this, or your experience, put it in the comments section below. We'd love to hear all your funny stories about struggling to learn like us.
and trying to put your parawing out your window of your car. I don't know where that would go.
Got to make do when you don't have wind, man.
That would work.
Take care, guys.